2 months later, I was at the office and I had remotely erased the guy's hard drive and brought 7 large Russian friends that I had met through my wife to the office. And I walked in and he was there and I said, "You have 5 minutes to get your personal things and go," because he had stolen all the money.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm super excited for this episode today because I have Todd Embley with me. Todd has bringing a whole host of wisdom and experience, and I'm super excited for this. He's the host of the Negotiation podcast. He's a mentor for early stage entrepreneurs, which is super cool, and I'm really excited to dive down that path. He's done a massive amount of speaking engagements from Startup Montreal to Collision Toronto, Asia Beat Taipei. I honestly, the list is so big. I actually got lost, which is super cool. Not only that, he's a big mental health advocate, and I'm really excited to have him on the show. So, Todd, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Nathaniel, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited for this. I'm not even sure which path I want to dive down first because they all sound really exciting. But maybe do you want to just give a little bit of history about where you've gone and what you've done and some of the really maybe just the really cool stuff and then we're going to dive into some other challenging stuff you've went through and how you went through it.
Yeah, sure. Let's pretend my 20s didn't happen. Um, that was, that was just a lot of personal growth wrought with, a lot of mistakes and just a lot of, I don't know, partying and in and out of, gosh, I mean, I've done so much post-secondary education, with only like a 4-year bachelor degree to show for it. Um, I just couldn't decide what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
Worked, school, all kinds of stuff. Searching for myself, really.
Yeah.
I ended up going back to school, went to BCIT, got pretty involved with the school there, got my business degree there. And then I wanted to travel. I'd never backpacked anywhere. And my dad had just got back from a business trip to China. I said, "Okay, China, let's go." Ended up getting a study visa so that I could stay longer than 30 days. So I ended up getting a 4-month visa, got there. And then that's where I met my wife in 2007, who was from China. And she had graduated with her master's and was there just to do some Mandarin immersion because she had been studying part time for a few years. That led me to just staying in China, for all intents and purposes, and it was just kind of the best place for us. I couldn't get her into Canada, so we ended up having to pick a place, and so we decided to stay in China. Ended up doing some entrepreneurial stuff there, and was somewhat discovered by a venture capital fund. There's a whole
Oh,
story in that as well. But they were running what's called an accelerator program. So for those of you out there that may have heard of things like Y Combinator, Techstars, 500 startups, these kinds of programs where they take in an early stage startup, they'll fund anywhere from 50 to $100,000, take anywhere from 6 to 7% equity stake, and then they work with you from anywhere from 3 to 6 months, taking you from, kind of pre-seed to seed and Series A funding. And
oh,
the guys around that is that they get to improve their stake in your company by multiples through that, helping you get to that next round of funding. Did that. I joined
wow.
in on that when we were in a city called Dalian in the northeast of China, where I lived for about 5 years. And then we needed to expand and grow. So I ended up upending the program and taking it down to Shanghai, where I lived for 3 years, and then needed to bounce. My son wasn't dealing so well with the pollution. So I ended up taking a job to be the director of a co-working space in downtown San Francisco, very close to the Twitter building down there.
Mhm.
And we only stayed for about 7 months. I was going to say that was the year of the election.
Mhm.
And when Trump was inaugurated and came in all guns a blazing towards the Muslim countries that he banned, everybody put hiring on hold. But what that was very problematic for my wife, who had wrapped up her role in Shanghai. She had actually done an MBA while we were there and started working again, and then couldn't get anyone to hire her in ed tech. So, given how expensive it is down there,
Mhm.
we decided to stop kind of rolling that boulder uphill by being an expat and decided to move back to Canada. So we thought we'd end up in Vancouver. We then chose to go to Kelowna. And so we were there, lived in the lower mission. I ended up being one of the directors of Founder Institute Western Canada. Then I ended up joining a mostly Chinese based real time engagement software company that was publicly listed on the NASDAQ, was the director of the startup program for them for a couple of years before then deciding to and we were dabbling in real estate, fell in love with real estate investing. We did flipping and kind of the
Wow.
Burr model of buy, renovate, rent, rinse, repeat type thing, refinance, repeat. And through our love of real estate, we decided to take advantage of an opportunity that came up through buying windows for one of our rentals, which was to take over a local windows and doors company, get a little bit more local, spend a little bit more time with the kids, be a little bit more involved in the community. And I think through all that VC and startup world experience, yes, I've been so fortunate. I mean, I was kind of the China guy for a while, so I got invited to conferences. And, whether I was speaking in Switzerland or Colombia or Lisbon or, like you said, Montreal, Honolulu, Taipei, wherever,
Yeah.
um, just had a blast being able to travel the world and go to conferences and had a lot of fun. But it was kind of time to stay home. I saw this quote once. It said, "You get 19 years with your kids, 18 while they live at home, and like a year total after that." And
Yeah.
that kind of scared me. So yeah, wanted to just kind of be home and be local and stay with the kids. So that's a lot of what we do. That's our main focus now, and real estate.
Yeah. The first thing that popped in my mind was the idea of leaping. And it sounds like you're somebody that's just not afraid to take that leap, which I know can be so terrifying for a lot of people. So my question then is, I mean, to just pack up and like go to China, like wow, that's like it's literally we call it the other side of the world for us right here in BC.
Yeah.
What, there's a lot there, but what was really like the thing that helped you to take that leap, not just that leap, but then leaping from this adventure to the next adventure and being an entrepreneur, that's essentially what you're doing. So what helped you go through those leaps and take those big steps without
Yeah, I mean
fear?
it's a developed appetite for risk
Mm,
or a learning not to fear risk,
mm,
overcoming things like imposter syndrome and
yeah,
whatnot. I think I just was very sure of what I didn't want to be or didn't want to do or didn't want to become more than I knew what those were.
yeah,
So I decided to just keep moving. Jobs I had where I didn't see a future and it wasn't what I wanted, I would, in startup land, we had this thing where you fire fast and hire slow. So I
yes,
was always
yeah,
firing myself from places or people or jobs or companies or locations that weren't working for me. And
yeah,
then I would just kind of let the universe deliver the next thing and try
yeah,
it out. And so and it was something out of necessity. And I have this wild story of that first kind of entrepreneurial thing when I decided to stay in China and I'm walking on the street and I can hear some guy behind me speaking English and I don't hear that a lot. It's Dalian. There's not a ton of foreigners there, so you kind of introduce yourself to people that you find. He was big. He was starting a magazine. He had an issue already published, so I kind of took it. It was in English. It was for expats. I got involved with that because I needed something. When you're in Japan or Korea or China and everybody's like, "Oh, are you an English teacher?" That's like the big reason that people kind of go
yeah,
abroad and they teach English. And I was like, "Okay, that's the one thing that I didn't want to do." I
Yeah.
didn't really see a future. It's a great way to see the world and make money while you're doing it, but I don't think it necessarily lends itself to a future. And I had just got my business degree. I wanted to do more, and that's no shade on people who are English teachers. I think it is a great way to just go and see other cultures and travel, and it's amazing for that. But yeah, I mean, I kind of jumped into that, and and then I said, listen to the guy later. You know, we worked together for a few months, and I said, I'd like to have a piece. I want to be a bigger role and part of this thing. And so we offered an opportunity. He said, you can buy 20% of the company for 20,000 US dollars. So I had to beg, borrow, and to my dad, to get this. I just graduated. I had no money. So he lent me the money, and let's just say 2 months later, I was at the office and I had remotely erased the guy's hard drive and brought 7 large Russian friends that I had met through my wife to the office. And I walked in and he was there. And I said, you have 5 minutes to get your personal things and go, because he had stolen all the money.
Oh,
And
wow.
so, bit of an awkward
Jesus.
staff meeting the next day. I
Yeah.
convinced everybody to give me 2 weeks. This is now ultra hustle mode with the fear of
Yeah.
dad being super disappointed in you over your shoulder. And I I went into overdrive and I managed to raise $30,000 from a few American guys that were there working at the Intel plant. And I managed to find a Chinese partner who had access to what's called a DM license or direct marketing license that you had to print on the binding of a magazine there to make sure that it was official and to basically run cover from the government and use his relationships. And then, yeah, we were off and running. We had to move offices. And in China, you like whether you rent an apartment or an office space, you pay in cash a year in advance.
Whoa.
So I did that and got a new office and did all that. And then 9 months later, the Chinese partner came in and announced that he had taken the company from all of us and he had used his connections to convince the landlord to sign the space over into his name, convince the banks to put the bank accounts into his name, and convince the legal entity body or a governing body of companies there to sign the company over into his name and moved it into a different district. And he did all of this very easily because I could not read or write Chinese. And I wasn't
Whoa.
really paying attention to that. And this was where the biggest lesson to me learned. And I like we tried to sue, we tried to fight. The third lawyer that gave all my stuff, hands me the box of all my stuff back to me, says, "Listen, Todd, I'll give you a piece of advice. He is, for all intents and purposes, Chinese mafia. So for every lawyer you get, one phone call from him, and they will drop your case. Forget about it. Let it go. Walk away. Move on with your life."
Whoa.
And so
Jesus.
that was pretty wild. The reason I never saw it coming was because it was an English magazine, and this guy had the most basic of English. And I held all the cards, all the staff, all the writers, all the advertising contracts, all were my relationships with bar owners and hoteliers and real estate developments. So I did not think I thought I was untouchable.
Hmm.
So of course we all gave up. He published a couple more editions, basically just using Google Translate, and then it just stopped and it went
Hmm.
away and it ended. And I thought, what was that guy doing? I had given him 10% of the company just for all the licenses and air cover. What a foolish thing to do.
Yeah.
And then I got a call a couple months later from one of my bigger advertisers. And he said, "Hey, listen, I would love it if you could introduce me to your old partner, Song Bin. And I've got some business I want to talk to him about." And I said, "Oh, okay. So you must not have heard what happened. Like he did always say whatever." And he replied to me, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, awful stuff. That, yeah, real bad. Yeah, that's terrible. I feel terrible for you guys. But frankly, he was able to steal a company from a bunch of foreigners without putting any money into it. He's clearly a brilliant businessman. And I've got this opportunity that I'd really like to discuss with him. Would you mind introducing us?" And this was a Chinese guy.
Yeah.
And this is where my mind was blown. I'm like,
Yeah.
clearly the rules of the game here are very different. And
Yeah.
right and wrong are not the same here as we think of them in the West.
Yeah.
And then it dawned on me that this is why. And I heard later the guy was beyond rich because in that society where it's so dog eat dog and the opportunities to level up come are few and far between. This was why. This was why he did it. It wasn't for the company, it was for the reputation. And
Mm.
their reputation is everything.
Yeah.
And so he was somewhat lauded amongst the community for doing what he did. He
Wild.
wasn't, his reputation wasn't tarnished, it was elevated. And so
Wow.
now he had all the opportunities coming his way that he needed, and thus wealth and status were born. And so that was a very interesting lesson that I learned through that whole experience. But it also started me, and at that point, the fear was gone. The
Mm.
worry of risk, because as I had to keep picking up the pieces and start again, I just found faith in myself to be
Mm.
able to. And I'm like, you know
Yeah.
what? You know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
So now it's like, let's go. Like,
Yeah.
what's next? You know, I'm in, it's I'm learning all that was the best money ever spent on an MBA
Yeah.
ever. And yeah, so making the leap just got easier and easier.
It's so I love that your mind went there. And I mean, obviously it had to at some point. It's just crazy how fast that happened because I would say the average person that would crumble them and they would go back to wherever. And for most people, to be honest, because that's pretty intense. Like I was listening to this and I was like, I'm literally doing this in my seat. I'm like, you had to deal with the Chinese mafia? Like, sounds like a movie, man. That's insane. But when you look at it in retrospect, like you said, it's like, how does that not bring confidence? You made it through. You're able to navigate that and more importantly, able to learn from it. And I've seen this lots in, you can name from the fitness industry to like any sort of industry. I mean, really, where somebody gets upset because somebody wrongs them, and clearly they wrong them. And we get attached to that, right? You get attached to that wrongdoing
Hmm.
and not realizing like there's a lesson here. There's a lesson here for you. And it's amazing that you found that lesson in this, not just the fact that like the reputation's everything, but to be able to bounce back and go, hey, I can still take on this. Everything else from there seems
Yeah,
easy.
yeah.
So my question for you is, because again, I like to put myself, I'm a visual person. I put myself there. I'm imagining you showing up to this place, this guy takes all your stuff. How did you, in those moments, navigate the emotional roller coaster and the whirlwind that's going on inside your head? At the time, did you have any techniques, or is it something that you just started doing? How did you navigate that whirlwind of emotions that hits you during those times?
You know, it's interesting. I was diagnosed with ADHD.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, almost exactly 6 years ago. It was like middle of March, 6 years ago, um, when I was 45. And
Hmm.
what I've learned since was some of the superpowers along with the failings that come along with ADHD. And one of the benefits is performance under pressure. I
Hmm.
live for the big moments. Cleaning the house, cleaning your room, cleaning your car, little whatever. Impossible to find enough motivation to do some things.
Mhm.
But then as you're launched into like the biggest moments and speaking on a stage filled with hundreds of people, and being able to just dial it up was one of the benefits.
Yep.
And I just saw quite clearly what I needed to do and how it needed to be done. And I was weirdly pragmatic about the whole thing. I mean,
Mm,
I went to the office, remote erased and downloaded his hard drive, which had all his passport and kids' pictures, all these kind of, just knowing that he was going to call me
mm,
and to come and fix it. And I did it. I went to a restaurant. I sat down at the bar. It was a friend of mine had a this woman Jennifer. She had a great high end restaurant. It was a little early. There wasn't anybody in there. I went. I sat at the bar. Said, "Give me a whiskey and coke." And I just kind of sipped on it and had my phone there and waited for the call. And I had already planned everything, had everybody mobilized.
mm.
I think the Russians were probably out pounding beers, getting ready for this big throwdown that never happened. They were getting geared up in their own way.
Yeah.
And he called and he's like, "Yeah, so whatever." And I said, "Yeah, no worry about it. I'll come over. I'm not far away. I'll come fix it." And I was just like, "Yeah, I mean, what's done is done.
Mm.
Um, you got to go, and you can walk out, or we'll have you rolling out horizontally. It's up to you." And I was so freaking pissed. Like I was so angry. He had
Mm.
lied, he had stolen,
Yeah.
and just it took me a few weeks to wrap my head around it, and then I just mobilized
Mhm.
and did what needed to be done. And there's nothing else. There's what needs to be done, and you just have to do it. And that's that 11th hour resilience that thankfully I had in that moment. And then I've been able to take that resiliency to the gym more often and just continue to grow that ability. And now I don't have any fear. Health
Mm.
is probably the only thing that could get in my way at this point. But dealing with everything after that, it has started to just get easier and easier. But yeah, I mean, just push came to shove. It was just you just
Mm.
had to do what you had to do, and you just kept the bigger picture in mind.
Absolutely. There's something you kind of touched on there, and I'm glad you brought up because I was going to bring it up was talking about how you were diagnosed with ADHD, and I found it interesting that you mentioned it because I want to talk about that was how you recognize that it is a superpower, and I feel like a lot of people we have these quirks, these issues, these whatever people want to call it, labels that people like to throw around, but when you look hard at it there is a superpower there. There's a gift there. For example, my wife always she used to bug me lots about, I'm not a very patient person. It's not my strong suit. But then I finally said to her one day, I'm like, but babe, I was like, that impatience is also what's gotten me to do these things, is taking these risks, is helping to build this business, these different businesses quickly. And so it's just funny that sometimes society will say, oh, this thing, it's bad. There's actually a gem there. There's something special there. I think that if you find and can harness, you can turn around and use. So my question for you is, do you think there is a method to finding that, to taking that thing that we think is bad, that is a disability, if you will, and turning that to a gift and finding that? What would do you have any insight on how to develop that, how to find that gift that hidden in that quote unquote disability?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cliches, or it's
Totally,
always
yeah.
darkest before the dawn.
Yeah.
Every cloud has a silver lining. Um, it is kind of all true. There used to be this, and it's been proven to not be true, but a lot of people said it for a long time before it was properly translated. But the Chinese character or the Mandarin character for danger
Mm,
is these two characters put together, which was danger plus opportunity.
mm,
It's been a little bit debunked. It's not quite that, but I think inherent to what it used to be known by is somewhat true. Um, for the ADHD, um, it's not an excuse. You're still 100% responsible for it in the way that it
yeah.
might manifest and piss off your partner or
Mhm,
be a drawback to your life or something like that. With ADHD, the diagnosis is 80% of the prescription.
mm,
And the rest is really just getting educated on kind of what manifestation of ADHD is inside of you, how it helps you, or in how it hinders you, and how it affects relationships and the people around you, and then just going to work on
mm.
those things. And just having the awareness. And you get a little bit ultra Canadian sometimes going, sorry, 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 I have ADHD. I'm so sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
Um, but it's just a lot like that. Like I think that it is. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I think a lot of people need to forgive themselves and
Yeah.
see, okay, what
Yeah.
what is it about my nature? Like kind of lean in on who you are. If you're just,
Mhm,
like there was this whole thing in tech where they loved lazy engineers.
mm,
Why? Because they were always looking for the fastest, easiest way to get their work done.
yeah.
And that always led to benefits.
Mm, mm.
They always found a way
That's awesome. I never thought of that. Yeah, that's
through the
cool.
lazy. It's like they worked really hard to try to not have to work, and there is this like inherent kind of brilliance to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and so it was these kinds of things, and you just kind of have to be open to it.
Mm,
I've always had this vision of kind of like you're, I don't know, you're hanging onto a log, or and you're going down this river of rapids, and you're thrashing and thrashing, trying to get to shore. You're trying to save yourself,
mm,
when you could maybe just realize that the river's going to take you, or life's going to take you where it's going to take you. So
yeah,
you can either continue to fight it because you're afraid, or you can just like kind of just hang on, stop fighting, get comfortable, and just enjoy the view.
yeah,
And just enjoy the journey. And you are just who you are, and figure out kind of what your superpowers are. I think when you're open to seeing them, or hearing them, or having other people maybe mention them, um, then start to maybe dial more of your life towards taking advantage of those, and then yeah, forgiving yourself and asking forgiveness from your partner, or your business partner, or whomever, for those things. And just don't let it hold you back. Just
yeah,
it's a part of your makeup. You're never going to be
yeah,
perfect, and you're never going to make everybody happy. And you just got to keep moving on.
yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head there initially. It was just the forgiveness part. Because I find that seeing this lots where you said we're always saying sorry, we're apologizing, and this constant apologize, especially in Canada anyway, apologizing for different things versus, I mean, yes, obviously you have to take ownership of what, mistakes, whatever. But instead of just apologizing for it, just acceptance of it. And then the question I've asked people is like, hey, what positive, what good came out of this? For example, I know people that have type 1 diabetics. And I always ask them, I'm like, well, they're like, well, I'm diabetic. I'm like, okay, well, do you know what good can come out of it? Like, what do you mean? He's like, well, if you start going to the gym, you want to like put on muscle, like you will put on muscle much faster than the average person because you can't let your blood sugar levels get low. Whereas you and I could go for 12 hours without eating, 24 hours, 3 days without eating, and be fine or be okay. So point being is like there's a bit of a superpower there, right? Putting on muscle
Hmm.
quickly. And so the other point I wanted to touch on, and you kind of mentioned it during your story, and I just wanted to highlight it is, so the forgiveness part is big and the awareness of it's big, but I think you really hit the nail there when you said the 11th hour you mentioned. It's for yourself. It was like getting yourself unintentionally, intentionally doesn't really matter, but being in those situations where the pressure's on,
Hmm.
where there's just so much pressure. It's like you have to figure it out. And I think, and this is just stuff that's coming ahead now is like, I think that's the key, or could be one of the keys is putting yourself in those situations where you have that much pressure, where it is a do or die situation. It is a like, oh, I need to make it happen or my kids won't eat. I need to make it happen or I'm not going to be able to pay the mortgage. I need to sort this out so that way I can reach these goals. And you had no fear. Therefore, jumping into these things was just commonplace. I think that's another part is addressing that fear. But if we, as humans and people that are struggling in these different fields, put yourself in that situation, make it so intense, get to the point where you can make it that intense that you're forcing something to
Yeah.
happen, forcing yourself to get that result. I think of time and time again in my life when I've done something really successful, it was, now that I think about it, it was the 11th hour. It was like, oh crap, I'm 10K in debt. I got kids to feed. I better make this personal training thing work and put every ounce of it. Sure as shit, it did work, and it came out way better on the other side. So I would say, yeah, putting yourself in those situations where you are being challenged, because humans are notorious for that, and it is our DNA is to make things comfortable.
Yeah, you have to be comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, I was not the kid when I was younger that, wanted the ball on the mound in the ninth in a one-run game,
Mm,
baseball term.
yeah.
Um, you know, I but I just really wanted to be that guy.
Mm,
And I was jealous of ones that wanted to. So part of that development journey post high school was becoming that guy. And then I did end up becoming that guy. I became confident in my ability to deliver.
mm,
I, bases loaded, two out. If I'm at shortstop, I wanted that ball. I'm like, oh God, hit it to me. Hit it to me.
mm,
I'm gonna
mm-hmm,
make that. I'm gonna win this game for us, right?
mm-hmm,
I wanted the penalty shot. I wanted that putt on the 18th to win the match.
mm-hmm,
I wanted it. And maybe I just wanted the glory. And, maybe that was egotistical or whatever it was. But I was confident that that was the mindset that would help me better in life. So
mm-hmm,
rather than please don't hit it to me, please don't hit it to me, versus hit it to me.
mm-hmm,
And so it's kind of, where do you live in your head? Are you living in fear,
mm,
or are you living in comfort, or in confidence? And that translates into a lot of different things. I mean, your relationship with money. Do you
mm,
have
yep.
a scarcity mindset or an abundance mindset? Like if you have a scarcity mindset, you're going to work your whole life to try to just get out of debt and have some savings, and have enough for retirement.
Mm-hmm,
That's your goal. That was the house I grew up in. That's how
mm-hmm,
my parents were. And I think a lot of people hearing this would probably grew up in that same environment.
yep.
But I changed it all. And now it's the opposite. I get into as much debt, good debt, as I possibly can. And I will always bite off more than I can chew.
Mm.
because I've developed the confidence that I am as good as others. I
Hmm.
I have the capacity as most others. I just think people, you don't quite know what we are capable of as a human.
Yeah.
And I think we're so much more capable
Yes.
than even the school system, educates us to be.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
We are more than I think our upbringing or our culture tells us that we can be.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I was thrown into opportunities that I was able to wash that off and
Hmm.
unlearn that,
Yeah.
and then started to kind of relearn and adopt a whole different outlook and strategy. And I still have imposter syndrome.
Mm.
I have imposter syndrome being on your podcast. Who
Yeah.
the hell am I that anybody would want to listen to? This is ridiculous. Why would I be telling anybody anything? Who am I to do that? And you somehow just have to kind of get over that.
Yeah.
And just it's just so like just go for it. It's a one you got one life to live.
Yeah.
And just stop wasting it. You can do it, and you will, as
Yeah.
long as you just one foot in front of the other and start going for it.
Yeah. I love that you said that, and I love the honesty there about the imposter syndrome. And you mentioned earlier even just the fear part, and how much that can hinder people. And heck, even yesterday, actually, yesterday and today, it was funny. I pride myself on just being like as best I possibly can, just always in a really good like peak state and happy. And like, you know what? I get thrown so many curveballs, and hence the emotional fitness podcast, right? Like, it's like it's becoming like a superpower of mine, get hit with these curveballs. No, I'm good. I can take it. I can take it. I've been through all this. And then yesterday was hit with this like financial stress. The gym, or I have a gym in my garage, and the bathroom started leaking. The toilet's leaking. There's piss water leaking out of the back. It's just like this like barrage of just not good things. And I finally was like, oh my God, I told my wife, I was like in tears, like, this is so much. Like I'm like struggling right now. There's just all these things that are like colliding, and it's absolutely brutal. And the business was struggling and this stuff. And it was funny. And I was going through it. And then after I realized I was driving around today, and I went, man, I was like, I don't want to think about this anymore. I'm done. Like, it's over. I'm over it, moving on. But God, that fear is sticky. That fear, and it was good. I'm actually grateful it happened now, because it reminded me, like, yeah, right. And I'm always going, why aren't people happier? Why aren't people listening? It's like, right, because it's so fucking sticky. It reminds me of a Venom from the Marvel movies, and how he's just clinging on to you, and he's pulling, and because he's trying to get him off, and he's got to rip it off. And I'm like, man, fear and anxiety and stress, like that's what it feels like. It's sticky. It's trying to climb back onto you. And so I know all these techniques to help with this, and it's still like
Mhm.
there, and it still took me probably 12 hours, between last night and today to like, right, move through that. And just to fully be like, no, that's done. I'm moving on. It's happening. I got to be better. I got to be stronger. What can I do? But it's so sticky is what I just want to bring up. And the only way, or is it the only way, the best way I found to combat that is to look at one you mentioned is look what you've done. Take look in perspective. That was actually the first thing I did. Right. Okay. Well, I'm not going to financially collapse. I have a house. When I was 25, I didn't think I'd ever have a house. I'm pretty pumped about that. I have an amazing partner. Right. Okay, yeah, that's actually pretty amazing. My kids are healthy and they're athletic, and we got careers. Okay, that's good. Like, have investments, right? Have a business. Okay, like, life's actually pretty good. So yes, these things are colliding, and it's and it's literally shitty. But
I
when I,
laugh. But
yeah,
like those things, and it always
yeah,
comes in
right,
threes for some
yeah,
reason. I don't know. I'm just like I just chuckle. Like one is annoying.
mhm,
Two is pisses me off. Three, I just laugh and I'm like, all right, just bring it. Come
Yeah.
on, like you son of a bitch, life. Okay, whatever. You did throw me. Let's go.
That's all
Okay,
you got?
yeah,
Come on, give me
yeah,
another one.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
This is not. And it just like I just compartmentalize it, and I'm just like one by one. I've had that thrown at me so many times. Like then my
Yeah.
dad getting dementia, and then my mom getting dementia, and now I got both of them, and I'm handling them, and all these kind of things, and
Yeah.
running
It's
the
a lot.
business and my other podcast. And I say it's just like whatever. It's just like, come on. I just this is life. And
Yeah.
I I am a savage when I'm defending my happiness.
Yeah. I
And
love
I
that.
measure success in minutes of the day I'm happy.
Yeah.
The more minutes of the day I'm happy or content, can't always just
Mhm.
be happy, but if you're content,
Yeah.
um,
Fulfilled. Yeah.
then and that's winning for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And it's funny. That's such good time because I was listening to the book Unshakable this morning, and that was what kind of helped me, like, right, remind me to go through it. And it's funny. Tony Robbins is the same thing. It's life is going to hit us with problem. That's a sign that you're alive. I love it. It's such a good saying. Do you know it doesn't have problems? Dead people. Dead people don't have problems. So if you have problems, it's a sign you're alive. And so when
Yeah.
you just said you're laughing, it's like, yeah, you're right. It's a good reminder just to like, okay, like it is what it is. Like I could sit here and put all my energy into being angry and upset and blaming. Because to be honest, that's what I want to do. That's the knee-jerk reaction sometimes is to blame, but then you just still feel shittier, and then that venom keeps sticking to you, and it gets deeper inside, and it's everywhere. Versus just going like, all right, you know what? This is just life. This is just another thing that's gonna make me better. And there's a lesson here that I haven't learned that I need to learn right now.
It comes for all of us, and it comes from for everybody. And hopefully people get better and have more resiliency.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that comes from taking risks and falling down and failing, but not letting
yeah,
it kill you and knowing that it won't. So then you're less afraid of it next time.
hmm
But, no matter what, I always think of, all the privilege I have, from, like my parents, for example, right? Yeah, both have dementia. Well, guess what? I get to say the word both because there's two of
yeah,
them. They're still both there. And some
yeah,
people haven't had any since the time they were born. So
yeah,
shut up and quit your whining. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I still get to be in Canada. You have all of this privilege. You and I both have the same privilege of the
yeah,
white male privilege. And I think if anybody else, there are like several billion people on this planet who would give their left arm to have half of the opportunity I
yeah,
have. So, I could cry about it, or I can actually just go to work to do the most with it that I can, because most people on this planet, given half the opportunities I've been given, would probably be doing as much or probably more with it anyway.
yeah.
So I just don't feel like I'm in a place to whine about first world problems and like, oh, I got in the mail like our property taxes went up. Oh my God. Like, well, guess what? You own a property.
Yeah,
Stop bitching. Like,
yeah, 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 yeah. No, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, like, look, we had to reschedule this podcast. Why? Because they're doing construction out front. Well, I mean, I still have a house. You know, they're doing maintenance. They're doing stuff where we live. It's, it's the quickest way I think, to navigate through that is just to look at and truly coming back to like look at what you could be grateful for because it could always be worse. There's always
mhm.
somebody that's in a worse situation just down the street. It's a reminder I have to my kids all the time is like they whine, sometimes they're getting better. Actually, to be honest, it's gotten a lot better, but they used to complain about, oh, well, wanting stuff or wanting this thing, wanting that thing. And I'd go back to them and be like, guys, like there's kids that go to your school legitimately that you're friends with that don't have lunch and that haven't eaten all day. Don't complain that we don't have food, right? And here's one of my kids' friends. So like right there in your face, this is a real person that legitimately just doesn't have food for lunch and probably and literally has told me multiple times they hadn't eaten all day.
Yeah.
So,
A couple
have
years
that.
ago, my daughter in grade five, she came home, one of her best friends, and she was like something. She was having issues with her best friend. She was really upset about it, or whatever. And I guess her best friend had said, "Yeah, well, how would you know? Your parents are rich,"
Mm,
meaning me and my wife. And I'm just like, "Whoa, wow." They look at us like that.
yeah,
First of all, never in a million years would I have ever thought anybody else would look at us like that.
yeah, yeah,
But I mean, we have debt up to our eyeballs. It's mostly debt that's making money, but still, it's I never would have thought of that, but I mean, I do the same thing. I'm like, you have no idea what half those kids in your school are going home to, what kind of home
yeah,
life
yeah,
they're going home to. And I just need you to respect that. And when when anybody comes at you with anything, even as adults, um, it's a little bit of insight into what they've got going on. And
yeah,
I've heard it said in this way of like if if somebody bumps into you and you spill your cup of coffee, um, you know what would happen if instead of having coffee in your cup you had water?
yeah,
It's I'm butchering it, but the point is life is always going to bump you,
yeah,
but what you spill depends on what you're holding. So
I like
if
that.
you're holding happiness,
Yeah,
or gratitude, that's what will spill out. If you're holding
yeah,
anger or you're holding pessimism, that's what's going to spill out, right?
yeah,
So, when you get cut off in traffic, you're like, man, that guy must be super late for work. I hope he doesn't get
yeah,
fired.
yeah.
It's just like there's an attitude you can have towards all of it. And when
Mm,
somebody is, something like this, I'm just like, shit, I would hate to be that person. They're just yelling at a cashier for no reason, and you're just like, what
yeah,
an asshole. But I'm like, man, that guy's life must suck
yeah,
if this is how he treats people who just didn't get his order right.
yeah.
Right? Like, how awful is that person? I don't know. Just a different perspective right away.
Yes. I absolutely agree in that. And I love what you said there. That I want to just highlight that again because I thought it was so good. And it really like it's a good visual is like whatever you're holding in that cup, your emotional cup, when life bumps you, that's what's gonna spill out. And I think that's so good because yeah, you said it. We're gonna get hit with stuff, right? We get hit all the time, and that's where having things in place to be able to fill that cup up and to be able to navigate those challenges and to not let them build up are so critical. So my question for you then, because you do have a lot, the parents, you have the business, you've kids, how do you stay like emotionally fit just to be present for yourself and to be present for your wife and what's going on in your life right now? What are some things that you find are really helpful to just fill up your own emotional cup?
That's an easy answer.
Mm,
For me, it's giving back.
I love
And
that.
wow, does that sound cliche coming out of my mouth?
It was,
But
but it was good.
it's true, and I'll explain. Um, a few years ago, maybe more. Let's talk maybe 6 years ago. Uh, I was not having the best day. I was in a pretty rough state, and I called a buddy of mine that was pretty high level thinker, pretty emotionally fit guy, which is why I reached out to him. And he said, Todd, your superpower is mentoring.
Mm,
And he said, my suggestion to you is call somebody and help them and offer to help them. And I'm
mm.
like, and it's a weird thing because I'm like, wait, I'm calling you for help, and your
Yeah.
advice is to call and help somebody else.
Yeah.
I'm the one who need, but it was I hung up and I called some like a startup. founder who was kind of floundering, and he was a startup flounder. And I started to kind of dig in how they whatever, and I gave him some advice and went through some things, this and that. Spent maybe 20, 25, 30 minutes on the phone. He felt a lot better. He
Mm,
felt that his kind of his acid reflex had gone down,
yeah,
and he was a little bit more positive, a little more confident, and a little bit more calm, and had some actionable items to kind of move forward. And he was so thankful for the call. Really great, good time, the whole thing. And I got off and I did a little self-diagnostic. I felt so much.
mm,
I felt worthwhile. Like
yeah,
I had purpose and I had
mm,
a place in this world and that I can contribute and just knowing that about myself, that's what really helps me.
yeah,
So if I'm ever kind of floundering or flailing emotionally, I go help somebody. I do something
yeah,
nice for somebody. Paying for the person behind you in the drive-through for their meal or whatever it is. And then that's really like with our company now and where our community give back project comes from. If I'm having a bad day, that's the project I work on.
yeah,
Is family in need who has a window in need, and I attack that and I get more work done on that, or I find a new project or a new family to go and help, and I reach out and I contact them and I arrange schedule whatever and give,
yeah,
and that just helps.
yeah. It really makes a lot of sense. One of my favorite sayings is life isn't about me, it's about we.
Mm,
And when you step outside yourself, step outside your own emotions, step outside the stuff that's going on in your head and just look at someone else, put that attention on someone else. It's amazing how powerful it is. It's amazing the shift in not only who you become, but just how you're feeling in that moment. This is why I started coaching football. Every time I've had struggles in life, I've gone back to coaching football twice, and now I've been doing it for 6 years, and that was exactly the start. It was beginning of my divorce, and I was like, oh my God, my life is in shambles. I'm living with my ex, like this is like the worst. I don't know what's going on. I started coaching, and it was like, oh, right, like this feels good. It fills up my soul. It helped me, truly helped me navigate that to the point now where I'm able to find that you mentioned before is to find that purpose. And for me, that is my purpose, is to help people see the best in them and help pull those gifts out and to realize how amazing and powerful and wonderful they can be. And so I love that you're talking about that, just giving back and putting back into the community because really that's where the biggest change can happen. I say this to the kids all the time is like, why I coach is like if I can change every year, if I can change, let's say 3 kids' lives and to be the best, absolute best role model. I can be the best version of a man. I can be the best coach I can be. Show them how to go all out. Show them what it takes to be successful. Show them how it takes to be strong. Show them how it takes to win. Show them what it takes to lose. Show them what it takes to work and to find a path that you want. I can do that every year. Think about the impact that'll make in our community. That's
mm,
three, even just three young, strong men that can go make a positive impact and that are going to event. My hope is that they're going to do the same thing. And if you keep doing that more and more and more, it's going to make a massive difference. So that way, not only do we have less and less people in our communities that don't have food and don't have these things that we do, that we got, but you're going to have more of that and to be able to carry that not just in our community, but to the next community and potentially to different countries. So again, I love that you brought that up. And, we could go on, honestly, we could keep talking about this because it's so good, but I wanted to just quickly dive into, you talk about mentoring and it ties into coaching a lot because it's something I do. And I wanted to just take a bit and dive into that a little bit and maybe ask just where somewhere that you start, if somebody comes to you and is in a place of like, I want to go, what are 2 quick things that you can that you would give somebody if they called you and like, I don't know what to do. I have this idea. I don't know what to do. What do I do? Just before we wrap this up here.
Uh, that is pretty broad.
It
I
is, I know.
generally start by asking a few questions, and I'm so my approach to mentoring in general was that these are startups building companies.
Yeah.
They come to me hoping I can help them build their company
Yeah.
or solve a problem for their company. And that is never what I do.
Mm,
I always help solve the human, and then
mm,
that human goes and solves their problem.
yeah.
Um, I help them look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I help give them confidence. I help either calm them down or help them walk away or look just in a different direction. They tend to, as the troubles grow, the vision narrows. And
Yeah.
I just want to help them zoom out
Mm,
a little bit. And so that is generally where my advice goes. When I was a mentor for a lot of founders and a lot of
mm,
startups. I was actually a therapist and a counselor
mm,
more than anything. They were building a company. I just needed to take care of them.
yeah.
I was just more of their emotional guardrails,
Yeah.
um, more than anything. I did not want to give them a fish. I really didn't even want to teach them to fish. I just wanted to help them learn how to build a fishing company
Yeah.
and that could, feed an entire village. But they had to go through a lot of the things themselves. And
Hmm.
so I just wanted to try to calm them down, keep them on track, see the bigger picture, and maybe go look at these from a couple of different angles.
Yeah.
I never gave them an exact roadmap. I just gave them, instead of going north, try going south.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was most of it. People can figure it out. It was more just like taking that, the parasympathetic nervous system and
Hmm.
and this kind of stuff. It just like getting that and kind of release valving
Yeah.
that. And then once that kind of cleared up, they would be easier to see the path forward.
Yeah. You know what? I love that you mentioned that. And I think that's so cool. It's just, you said the more the emotional side of it, because it is, especially when we're starting any business, it's very emotional. There's a lot because it's a part of you that you're putting into it. So I think that's really cool and amazing that you're able to do that. And you really, funny that ties back zooming out, right? What you said, zooming out and being able to just look at it from a different perspective, which is kind of what we've been talking about through all this. And it's funny that that tied back in again. So again, thank you for that. Is there any other last things you want to say just before we wrap this up here? Just because I know we gotta keep moving on with our lives.
No, I mean, I'm always happy to help. I always enjoy people reaching out to me. I mean, I think, even, for business purposes, find me on LinkedIn, can always shoot me a message. And, I just enjoy being able to be helpful.
Yeah.
I love giving back and, generally happy to make introductions or to offer advice or
Mm.
to take a quick call or anything like that. If anybody's struggling, anybody needs any help, count me in.
I love that. Thank you so much, Todd. Appreciate you and all just being so honest and open with everything you're going through and just for your wisdom in the journey of being an entrepreneur. And I'm really excited for the next stages and everything that's coming your way. So thank you again so much for being on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Nathaniel. It was a pleasure.
So thank you so much for listening to this episode. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to do that. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. Please share, because that's what helps this podcast grow and be able to reach more people. And why wouldn't you want to share something like that with somebody if you really enjoyed it? If you haven't yet, I would also encourage you to go to lifepurposely.ca. My wonderful wife, Emily, sends out weekly content to help you improve your life and to think differently and to make wonderful changes that can impact your life forever. So thank you again for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode.